They didn't announce it, but the new financial system just went live. Today's video, I'm going to break down how this battle with Jerome Powell is much deeper than you think. We've been taught at a very, very young age to operate what's called a vertical strategy. Go to school, get a job, trade time for money, be paid in someone else's debt, get a 401k, and hope that we can retire at 62. And I'm here to tell you that the old system is dead. This is not our grandparents' or our parents' economy. Number one is you have to have an offensive strategy. And number two, during these economic cycles, because what goes up will come down. It's happened over and over and over again the last 200 years since markets have been created. There's been over 30 major market collapses. You need a defensive strategy. So I'm going to break down how I believe that they've already implemented the new financial system. I'm going to share with you on the back end of every video what I'm doing offensively and defensively. And I want to remind you that there is no get rich quick. There's getting wealthy for sure by understanding how to build a system and get out of a vertical strategy. The old system taught you to trade time for money, put your money in a 401k, give your money to an asset manager, give your money to a broker, and hope that at 62 that you'll have enough to retire. That's not how winning is done. Winning is done through discipline, consistency, offensive, defensive, and a system. So let's first watch the video, and then I'll break down my interpretation. Again, this is my interpretation, but I'm putting my money where my mouth is, and I'm going to share with you guys on every single video exactly what I'm doing so you can measure my success over the next 5 years. You've been able to measure my success from 2020 to 2025. Went from completely broke, losing everything because of the pandemic, and I kept my crypto because I believed in it. But the difference was I created an ecosystem. And from there, we went from completely broke to multi-millionaires, seven-figure entrepreneurs, seven-figure investor. And now we're compounding money every single week. Now, what I mean by that is money compounds every 7 years at 10%. The richest man in Babylon. Every time we get paid, we transmute it into assets. First, cash flow. What's left? Assets. When assets appreciate, the offensive, we move it into defensive, and then we borrow from the defensive to buy more assets. And I'm going to share with you that whole ecosystem. Okay. So we're first going to watch this. This is much deeper than you think, the whole Jerome Powell case thing going on. They're putting so much pressure on the Federal Reserve. Okay. It's not federal, nor is it reserve. In tomorrow's video, I highly recommend you watch tomorrow's video. I've been trying to tell you guys about WLFI, World Liberty Financial. World Liberty Financial is going to change the game in regards to decentralized banking. Okay. The partnerships are flying in now for WLFI. You're heading into a new decentralized bank. You're going to start to see the battle from the old system to the new system. Now let's take a moment here. Let me bring you on the screen because I want to share this with you guys. You have to understand that this year is the Great Mutation. Okay. The old system is dying off. You're not going to stop it. Healthcare system, financial system, and spiritually. Okay? You're going to see some of the most radical transformations from 2026 to 2030. We've already seen massive transitions from 2020 to 2025, but you're going to see the actual system switch now. By 2027, the back end, your banks are going to be wanting to custody your cryptocurrency. They're feverishly right now trying to get involved. When this Clarity Act hits, you're going to see an amazing race to custody cryptocurrency, DeFi platforms, traditional banks becoming DeFi, DeFi becoming traditional, and Trump trumped everybody with World Liberty Financial. He's creating deals all over the world. Steve Witkoff is in the White House, right? The dads are writing the rules and the boys are running the bank. They cornered the Bitcoin market, Bitcoin mining, the stablecoin market, DeFi market. And we get the opportunity to be involved in it. That's the difference between the old system and the new system. It's going from centralized to decentralized. So let's watch this video really quickly, and then I'll share with you what I think is happening. And I really recommend that you like, subscribe, and comment, and watch the video tomorrow. I do these every single morning to help educate you and help you through the system.
Let me switch gears, get your legal opinion on the other major story we're following, and that is the DOJ's criminal investigation into Federal Reserve Chairman Jay Powell over his Senate testimony back in June of last year, and whether he lied to Congress about the $3.1 billion price tag for the renovations for the Fed building. Some lawmakers are pushing back on this investigation, Seth. The Democrats are saying we're not going to confirm anybody on the Fed board until this issue is settled. What is the legal basis behind this? What are you expecting here?
Well, the charge is that Powell lied. He committed felony perjury to the Senate Banking Committee last year in discussing this topic for the renovations. Believe me, I'm not a big fan of Jerome Powell. I think that he has had a tendency of perhaps being political in his rate cut decisions. And it really is very troubling that you've got multi-billions of dollars that are going into these building renovations. But it's very important to keep in mind, this is a huge escalation. It would have been a big deal if Congress said, we're going to be investigating this and considering a criminal referral. It also would have been a big deal if the Justice Department said that they were opening up a criminal investigation. We're already at full cruising altitude because we have a grand jury subpoena.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a big deal, guys. The head of the Fed is going in front of the court. Okay. But I want you to take the emotion out of it and really understand what's happening. Okay. Before 1907, guys, money was rooted in reality. Okay. Money was rooted in reality. Land, gold, silver. Your labor was traded for reality, real world assets. 1907, there was a bank, there was a collapse, right? Went into 1913, the Federal Reserve was created. There was a bunch of different currencies, stable coins. Think about that. We're going back to pre-1907. Okay. Then after 1913, the Federal Reserve was created. It's not Federal Reserve. Now, 113 years later, they have collapsed our monetary system by 96 to 97%. Now, to really think about that, as it's the number one currency in the world, has collapsed 96 to 97%. You're paid in someone else's debt. There's only debt in the system. I know you want to believe that everything is just going to stay the same and put your head in the sand and pull the sheets over your head and hope that you wake up in 5 years and Trump is going to fix everything. You have to navigate through this, guys. This is not our grandparents' economy. They went through the Great Depression. They were sold the American dream after World War II. The American dream was alive when you can have one income, a nice little home, a car to get around. You could go on vacation. You could live off a $30,000 salary. I mean, my parents, I think they made around $30,000 in 1973. They bought their first home at $25,000. Mortgage around $200, somewhere around there. You could live off one income. We're the ones that got effed, guys. We caught the ball because our grandparents and our parents weren't educated on what money is. And after 1971, they detached us from the gold standard. They literally got the right to print and have a free checkbook and write. But here's how it works, guys, is the higher and closer you are to that printing machine and the more knowledge you have, because wealthy families have wealthy kids and poor families have poor kids. That's how it works. I didn't create the system. I didn't create the reticular activating system. God did, right? The reticular activating system, the RAS, whatever information is in here becomes your reality. So if your parents are wealthy and they're indoctrinating you into wealth and they're doing education system around entrepreneurship and building and problem solving versus the impoverished system that I grew up in and the system I pulled my son out of, the schooling system, and the workforce that I pulled my daughter out of and brought her under our family business, teaches our kids to be monetary debt slaves, guys. They get 2 15-minute recesses, a 30-minute lunch. They take homework home, and they can't wait for the weekend. Does that sound familiar to you? Sounds like corporate America. 2 15-minute breaks, a lunch. You got to take your work home, and then you can't wait for the weekend. It's called weekend for a reason, because you're weak at the end. And when you're weak at the end, you watch TV and you bury yourself in your favorite football team, and you stop dreaming and you stop growing and you stop creating. And so you put a vacation on a credit card because you're so stressed out. You buy a car you can't afford to impress people you don't like, and you monetize your debt. And the only way for the system to continue is monetary debt expansion. That's it. That's why Trump wants to bring rates down to zero, because what happens is there's going to be monetary debt expansion. And what happens is there's going to be a contraction of that. And in 2029, going into 2030, there's going to be massive hyperinflation. The credit card debt's going to be at an all-time high. Now, they can print, we can't. Okay. They're moving into hard assets, 1907, right? Bitcoin, real estate, silver. Okay. But here's the difference, is that it's not hear ye, the banks are collapsing, 1929 to 1930. You now have a whole internet that you can research. You now can build a system. You now can pick up your phone and invest. You don't have to walk into a financial advisor and sit with somebody in a suit that probably isn't even wealthy, right? That probably isn't even investing in the same things that they're putting you in, that gets paid under assets under management. And the more assets they have, that's why they don't recommend things outside of traditional investors. That's why they don't want you going into things like cryptocurrency. Now they're going to be inviting you into cryptocurrency. It's a fiduciary responsibility to expand their knowledge, to understand what's actually happening within the financial system and to grow your wealth. But then you walk in at 62 years old and like, hey, congratulations, you got $1 million and we got you 8%. But you've been making $120,000 a year, and now you're only going to make $80,000 a year, and you're taxed on the back end of your life. And during that lifetime, you've lost about half of your purchasing power. We need financial literacy. We don't need stimulus checks. We need financial literacy. We need to understand how to buy assets offensively. And then when those assets go up, we need to be defensive, and we need to pull before it goes down and get into defense, which I'll explain to you in just a moment. So we're going to watch this video, and then I'm just going to get on my soapbox. I'm going to rant around my offensive and defensive strategy in my hopes that I can help one person.
Minutes for an opening statement. Technology continues to revolutionize our financial system, from payments to newer applications like earned wage access. Digitalization, cryptography, and artificial intelligence give consumers faster, cheaper payment, flexible access to earn income, and new ways to manage everyday purchases.
Listen, this is really...
These innovations have the potential to improve Americans' financial well-being by making their day-to-day finances more practical, predictable, and affordable. Historically, workers were paid when they earned wages. Yet today, many workers in our economy go home without their earnings. Holding an employee's pay until the end of a payroll cycle is a relatively modern practice. Earned wage access helps restore this link between work and pay by allowing workers the flexibility to access their wages as they earn them. This flexibility can help families deal with unexpected expenses, from medical bills to car repairs, or simply pay recurring bills timelier. By providing timely access to earned income, EWA can help Americans achieve their financial goals and help businesses improve worker satisfaction, retention, and overall productivity. Importantly, innovations like EWA and buy now, pay later options often coexist and intertwine with traditional financial institutions. Banks and other lenders are vital partners with FinTechs, providing liquidity and credit, as well as access to infrastructure like payment rails.
Boom. Okay, so let's get some real talk here. And this is where we got to really start to look at the RAS, the subconscious mind programming. We're going to get ourselves a get out of jail free card this one time, okay? We were indoctrinated into this, guys. Okay, that's the thing we have to accept, and the reality we have to accept. Okay, we were indoctrinated into a system to teach us to trade time for money. It's that simple. Okay, so when you accept the reality, the acceptance and awareness, that's just knowledge, right? That's just knowledge, and that's not power. Knowledge enacted upon is power. And what happens is knowledge enacted upon for a long enough period of time will allow you to become your new paradigm, but you got to go through some difficulty. You got to go through some pain. You got to go through some discipline. And that's why I'm so against, and I preach this over and over again, this price prediction, hopium. I'm anti that. And I've been that for a long time. I've been sharing that. And then it's because it's just so bad for your psyche. It destroys people's portfolio. Hopium is the greatest drug ever sold. Okay. We are in the era. This is really important. Listen to me. We're in the area of authenticity. We're in the Great Mutation. And we're in an era where blind leadership is dead. you're going to have to start to understand how to take responsibility of your income, understanding what money actually is and how to transmute that money so that your family can be free. And your path to wealth should be so that your family no longer has to trade more time to get more money to do things that you enjoy. It should be taking your money to free up time so you no longer have to be at the mercy of another man telling your spouse when she can take time off, or telling you when you can take time off, or telling you when you can be home with your kids when they're sick. I'm not anti-system. I'm anti lack of discipline, because everybody has access to this information. Everybody has access and free will to this. We believe that we don't. The 1% will always be the 1%, because if you give $1 million to every single person in society, Jim Rohn, it'll end up in the same 1%'s hands, because the 99% didn't change their mind. So here's my offensive and defensive strategy. Again, I'm not telling you what to invest in. I'm going to share with you what I'm investing in. What you have to understand is you need to study books like this. Warren Buffett, Interpreting Financial Statements. You need to get into your zone of competency, Intelligent Investor, Richest Man in Babylon, Cash Flow Quadrant. So I just started reading those books. That's one of the greatest places ever. It was free. I went to the library and started reading and absorbing. Then I built my own little ecosystem. Okay. And I built cash flow, and I took the cash flow and I didn't store it in my bank. I bought assets. So let's talk offensive and defensive. Okay. So offensive is assets that go like this. Okay. They go up and they go down. Okay. We could say XRP, we could say Bitcoin, you could say Palantir, NVIDIA, right? These are things that go up and down. That's offensive. You're putting your money into something where you're trying to score a touchdown, right? Now, if you're winning, okay, and I'll explain it. Let me explain it like this. Okay. Let me explain it with an athlete. Okay. Well, let's take in a UFC fighter, and hopefully this will be related, and then I'll tell you my whole system. Okay. So say you're a UFC fighter, right? And I love UFC. I think it's just what a crazy sport, right? Just so noble that people go into battle to feed their families, which is crazy, man. But say if you're a UFC fighter, right? And you're at the peak of your career, that would be your offense, right? You're going out there, you're fighting, and you're at the peak of your career, and all this money starts coming in. That's the offense. It's like a market cycle. Because let me ask you a question. If you're a fighter as well, are you always going to be at the top of your game, or is there going to be that one moment? Listen to me. So take this into your own financial reality. Is there going to be that one moment where you get knocked the F out and it changes your whole psyche? An example, let's bring that into financial. You're working your ass off. You're at the peak of your career, and boom, 2006 to 2008 happens, and you had no defense. You're in a freaking stock market because that's what they told you to do. You're in a 401k and you're about to retire. And because our government, our banks didn't regulate financial rails, you get screwed. So you're offensive your whole life. You're offensive and you never got any defense in place. So you're the UFC fighter. Okay. You're Conor McGregor. You're crushing everybody. You're the Mystic Mac. You're predicting what you should be doing during that time, because it's a market cycle. You're a cycle, the market cycle, your relationship cycle, the earth cycles, nature cycles. The tide goes in, the tide goes out. You're not going to beat it. So what you should be doing as you're winning those big purses and you're knocking people out, you should be defensively pulling some off the table on the way up in your career, pull it off the table into defensive. Here's an example of some defensive. Insurance, life insurance. We love life insurance. Protected principal, that's defense. Okay. Market-like returns, that's offense within a defensive mix. And I can leverage to go back into offense to pull back into defense. So insurance, precious metals, real estate. Okay. Right now, and I'll give you mine. I'm insurance, copper, silver. I just started dollar cost into silver, back into silver, dollar cost averaging into silver, and Berkshire. For me, Berkshire stability, leadership, and longevity. It's a long-term hold. Insurance is my family bank and my protection and protection of principal and family. It's all protected. Nobody can touch it. We got silver. We know silver is God's money. That's barterability and safety and protecting from the deflation of the US dollar. Okay, so that's a defense. My offense, and I'll go through capital DR, is things like XRP, Bitcoin, Solana. I can put Bitcoin in defense too. I look at it as gold. So I don't have any gold. I use Bitcoin as my gold. Call me crazy, but that's what I do. XRP, Bitcoin, at WLFI is my number 3. I'm doing them in order. Solana, XLM, HBAR, and VeChain. That's my top 7. I have a lot more. I'm going to consolidate into the top 4, which will be XRP, Bitcoin, WLFI, and Solana. Those would be my top 4 by 2030. You don't need a bunch of cryptos, guys. You need to get in your zone of competency and stick and go deep. Okay. So that's my offensive. So with my offensive, and also the offensive is my cash flowing businesses and my cash flowing dividends. So there's C in the capital DR strategy I created. C is cash flow. So when I get cash flow, cash comes in. Okay. I take my first 10% and I put it into dividend stocks. So that creates a brother or sister. I take anything outside of debts and non-negotiables and I look at the market. So for example, like where's my little book at? It's in my bag. Sorry. So like today is Wednesday. On Monday, I have this list that I write out. So I'm going offensive, defensive. I'm going back and forth now because my brain is now going more defensive because it's going to be very bullish, but I'm going to build some defense. Okay. So 10% goes into dividend stocks. The rest is sitting there. I have outside of debts, non-negotiables. I'm not going to put it in the bank. I'm going to put it either into XRP, Bitcoin, WFI, into assets, or now I'm going to rotate based on the markets and I'm going to put it into copper stocks. I'm going to put it into silver, right? And I'm going to put more into my cash value life insurance. Okay, we're going offense, defense. Does that make sense? Hopefully, give me a thumbs up down below if this makes sense. So cash flow. I take cash flow into A, assets. That's offensive. And then when my offensive price appreciates, I put it into protection. P, life insurance. Okay. When everybody's trying to get rich quick, it peaks out, it comes collapsing down. I go into my L, my defense, and I leverage from my own bank and I go back in and buy people's fear that are running from offensive and they're trying to get back into defensive. They're scared, but they're on the wrong part of the cycle. Warren Buffett, buy when there's blood in the streets. When the tide goes out, you see who doesn't have pants on and you go in and buy. And DR is de-risk. So when you're offensive, and hopefully that helped with the athlete thing. So the de-risking for an athlete would be, and I have many athletes that I know, the de-risking for you guys, listen to me. I know a lot of you watch this. It's not Lambos. It's not watches. Get your shit together, man. Like, you are in the peak of your career right now. Actors, athletes, executives, I don't care, a job. You're in the peak of your career. Defensive guys, no Lambos, watches, all that stuff. Get it into defensive. Buy the assets that will buy the liabilities, because sometimes at some point you're going to get knocked out. At some point you're going to get too tired of putting up with your boss's bullshit and you're going to want to get out. But if you don't get defensive during offense, when all of a sudden the lights turn out, you're now going to have to be offensive the rest of your life. That's how they trap you. And I hope this helps by explaining it that way. Okay. You got to get really serious about this. You got to get really, really strategic about this. You got to build a system. Horizontal, not vertical. XRP is not going to save you. Price predictions are not going to save you. A system is going to save you. Okay. Learn how to manage your own money. Do not leverage unless you understand how to leverage. If you're ever going to leverage, you should be leveraging to buy cash flow or an asset. Okay. Don't leverage your crypto. It's too volatile. I will tell you, do not do it. I tried to tell people not to do it. And then 2025 came. Tons of people. We've coached 14,000 people like, oh, I leverage. It's like, I told you not to, man. I know you want to believe that you're going to figure this out and you're going to beat the markets, on your cell phone and your laptop. And, you're not. There's a much bigger game being played, man. They wait to see when we're over leveraged. They wait to see when the market's overheated and boom, they pull. And then they buy your blood in the streets. This is how winning is done, guys. I wish I could sell you some magic pill, but I tried all that stuff. It didn't work. It's discipline, consistency. And now is the time to plant the seeds. And after February, as we continue on, any brokerage, any financial institution in the financial space, this is part of financial, is going to get exposed. There's a big silver squeeze going on. Brokers, anybody doing things unethical, immoral in the financial space is going to get exposed. You're going to see this. Mark my word, from February on in 2026. What do you think's going on with Jerome Powell right now and the feds? If they are doing something wrong, it's going to start to get exposed. That's how cycles work. So instead of protesting or fighting against each other, let God do what God does. All darkness comes to light. All the seeds that I planted have to come to light, whether good, bad, or indifferent. That's just how it works. All right. I've been on my soapbox. I just want to tell you guys I love you. I appreciate you. And I hope that the athlete thing helped a little bit. If you need any support at all, we have a badass community that you could be part of. I have a whole free section on here. I want to make it very clear. I don't do WhatsApp, Telegram. Those are all scammers. You don't need a Web3 account. Don't transfer your crypto to anybody. Do not. We are educators. We do not invest people's money. I will never invest people's money. I will never do that because I'm trying to teach people how to manage their own money. I have an education system. It's trademarked called Capel DR. If you go down below in the description of my YouTube video, you can sign up to join my Capel DR program, or in my social media, you click the link. You can interview with my team to see if you're a good fit, ask any questions. I also have my own insurance brokerage as well. We teach people how we use cash value life insurance. Not everybody needs an insurance policy. They're not magic retirement policies. They need cash in them, right? And so we just show people, hey, this is how we do it. This is what it looks like. And it's not a one size fits all. Not everybody. It's age specific, wealth specific. Do you have cash flow? What is your goals? But we use it as a defensive strategy in a family bank. And we use ours to leverage. We use ours to leverage to buy more assets. And so if you need support with that, to try to understand that concept, my team is handpicked and trained by me. I own a small brokerage of elite agents that can help you answer any questions. So that's down below as well, my social media platform. Love you guys. I'll see you on the inside. Warriors, let's get your shit together. Let's go.